Or first, or
Oh, yeah, I'll go first. Hi, guys. Welcome tonight. I am Aaron Ramirez, manager of the Local History and Genealogy Department for the Pueblo City County Library District, here with you again with another great program in collaboration with the Arkansas Valley Audubon Society. Tonight, I'm very lucky to have Peg Rooney with AVAS and Harry Rurup. Also a member and our presenter tonight. Hi, Harry. Hi, Peg.
Hi, Aaron.
hi.
Sorry for the late start, viewers at home. We had some technical difficulties, but we think we have it figured out. So I will kick it off to Peg, and she will give you all the updates and introduce Harry.
Thanks, Aaron. I want to welcome you all here tonight. And as you know, there are lots of events going on in our country and around the world that are capable of causing us great deals of physical and mental stress. But one of the things we can do to control that stress is to get outside, literally get out in nature. Now, whether that's joining the Audubon Society on our fourth Saturday bird walk at the river campus at 9 in the morning, or taking a walk in your neighborhood in the fresh air and sunshine, or just sitting out on your patio, listening to the birds, appreciating the sounds of nature. Now, there are lots of organizations out there that protect the great outdoors, protect that natural world that we all need to be out in. But only the Audubon Society specifically focuses on birds and their habitats. So if that's a mission that resonates with you, I'd like to encourage you to join the Audubon Society. Membership information is on our website, Southern Colorado Birds, abbreviated SOCO, so socobirds.org. So we hope you'll join us, but either way, get outside, get into nature, feel better. And now I'll turn this over to Harry.
Hi, Harry. We've got your presentation is up, but we are past. We're a few pages in at this point. So if you could go back to the first slide, you'll be good to go and to begin your presentation.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I've got Osprey on my screen, and you should be good to go.
Digiscoping. It takes two: camera plus one of these: a telescope, a spotting scope, a monocular, a binocular. In place of a camera, a mobile phone camera may also be used. And I have a link here that you could follow later, possibly. And you can search for cell phone adapters. If you already have a camera and a spotting scope and a tripod, you will need adapters which connect the camera to the scope. There are many adapter choices cataloged by suppliers. I strongly advise you to contact the scope manufacturer and the vendor. Give camera and scope details so they can suggest the right adapters. Continue to watch, and in part 2, I will briefly give advice about equipment and technique. I was driving in the state park one April day, and I noticed a couple large birds on a nest, and I recognized them as ospreys. So I went and I looked for the parking lot, and I parked in the parking lot and set up my equipment, my Digiscoping equipment. And this is day 0. They're redoing the family space here. On the right, you see the male osprey has a twig in its mouth. Okay, the female is on the left side and supervises. So in this picture, this is the female, and she's waiting for the male to come back. And here's the grand entrance. And we have a mating taking place here. And here's the male back up at his perch resting. And this is just one picture I took the following day. The female is the one on the right, and the male is the one on the left. Whoops. There's two pictures here. On the left, you see the female is on the left picture, and the male is on the right. And then the male leaves and comes, and we have another mating occurring 8 days later. So we'll just say that this is probably an important day to remember as far as the progress of their family goes. It'd probably take, if this was the actual time of conception, it'd probably take another day for the egg to form, like 24 hours, and then maybe another 24 hours for the next egg to be delivered to the nest. So, and now comes the wait. Meanwhile, a surprise flies into view. In between the osprey nest and where I was about 100 yards away from the osprey nest. There was this other nest. I noticed a large bird fly in. I didn't see what it was right away, but then I focused in on it with the Digiscope, and you can see the female great horned owl and two little owlets in the lower part of the picture there. This happens to be a special day for a member of my family, the date of this picture. So here's a pretty good picture of the adult owl. In the right-hand picture, I kind of like the barring that you see on the wings there is very obvious right here. It's kind of sheltering the owlets. This picture was taken with my phone camera a few days after first sighting the owls. It shows the owl nest on the right and the osprey nest in the distance. This is a picture from the back of the great horned owl. And here are the couple of pictures of the chicks. Okay. Here's a picture of the ospreys again. The male has just delivered a fish to the nest. The eggs are already laid in the nest by this time. And here's a photographer's picture of the eggs showing the pattern on the eggs. Normally, there's a day between the laying of eggs. So, but it's possible they could all hatch at the same time, even though they were laid on different days. Okay. During courtship and continuing through egg laying, the male osprey provides all the food for the female. The male will also share some of the brooding duties. I show a little illustration on the lower corner of the approximate size of an osprey egg is 2.4 inches from end to end, a little bit larger than a regular domestic hen's egg. This is a little chart. It's kind of important to help keep track of what's going on and when things will happen. Concentrating on the osprey, the incubation takes from 32 to as much as 43 days. In fledging, this is after the chicks are hatched, how many days it takes for them to fly, be able to leave the nest. That's 48 to 59 days. And you can also add these two numbers together and you get a minimum time for the whole procedure or a maximum time. Now note the bald eagle has similar incubation time, but the fledging time is considerably more days before they will fly. So I will refer to this information later. Remember, there's 102 days for the whole, for the maximum, and we'll continue on from here. Now, the female is probably still in the nest here incubating, and I have a graphic on the screen showing roughly the width of this nest. From one side to the other is about 4 feet. It's built up every year and can get bigger. Meanwhile, back to the owls. Let me say this about the owls. The great horned owl usually will lay their eggs and produce chicks sometime during the late winter. So they get an early start compared to the osprey. This is a picture I took from a different angle, and the owls are getting quite big. They look cute, but they're still getting big. Okay. And this is the last time I saw the owlets. On May 25th, day 37, about a month from the first time I saw those owlets, they had flown. As I approached my setup area, the adult mother flew to another tree. The owlets were not seen again. Meanwhile, the ospreys continue to incubate their eggs. In this picture, this is day 59. The chicks are hatched by this time. My first glimpse of a downy body was on June 22nd. Notice the little sign in the picture says barbed wire. So they'll pick up all kinds of stuff for their nest sometimes. Here's a mother looking after one of the two chicks. I could say that this was out of a little fuzzy because it was a windy day, but anyway, you can see the chicks, and let's go on to the next slide. Here is the mother offers a bite of fish to the chick. There's the chick facing the mother. There's another chick in the nest somewhere, but you can't really see it. Okay, this is day 75. Both chicks and mother are in the nest, and father is perched above. We're getting pretty far along in the development now. The mother watches as the chick flexes its wings. And this is the mother standing above the two chicks. The chicks have grown rapidly and are looking more and more like the adults. Recently, a fish has been delivered to the nest. Okay, it looks like they're looking directly at me, yeah, but I'm 100 yards away, so they shouldn't be too bothered. Okay, the fledglings are now perching on the edge of the nest, facing inward, not outward, and another piece of fish has been delivered. The fledglings are now looking outward beyond the edge of the nest and exercising and flexing their wings. I should say that I've spent countless minutes just watching them sit on the edge of the nest, waiting for them to take the leap up into the air, but it was quite a wait. The following slide shows mother taking off on a short flight. The chicks exercise their wings and hop around the nest. This is one of the chicks here kind of exercising the wings. And this is the mother on the right-hand top picture taking off. And down in the lower picture, you can see the chick, hopping up in the air, while the other one is down in the nest. This is actually getting pretty close to the time that we're expecting it to fledge. So I spent a little more frequent, took a few more frequent visits to the location. This is the next day. Here's kind of a neat picture with the two youngsters facing opposite directions. Two youngsters poised to explore. Here, the young bird is flexing its wings. And like I might have said earlier, cannot always tell the young birds from the adults at this stage. The physical training continues. Here's a picture of the mother taking off, and one of the chicks perched at the edge of the nest, and I'm waiting for it to fly, but it'll be a little bit longer. Okay, still waiting for inspiration. You can see both chicks here. One's on the right, the other's on the left. Okay, now this was kind of a special day. In this picture, we can see one of the chicks rising up into the air. And since my camera can record the time that the picture was taken, we'll have a good idea of how long this chick is up in the air. Notice the talons. Now this picture, believe me, the bird is hovering just over the mother above the frame of the picture. Now the bird is coming back in for a landing. Finally, it has landed, and the other chick is quite excited about the whole thing also. So total time in the air was about 15 seconds, which is progress from what I'd seen. Here is the next day. There's the mother perched up above the nest, and here's the chick. The chick starts flapping its wings, and what do you know? It's sitting right on a level with the mother. Meanwhile, the other chick gets a little bit excited again, too. Okay, I skipped day 110 for some reason, but the next day I was anticipating that they might be flying pretty soon. So I brought my zoom lens, set it at 300 millimeter, and because I'm expecting to see some flying, I will also be much closer to the nest. Whoops, excuse me. Too far. All right, excuse the switching. You can see the mother perched on the edge of the nest there, and look at the top of her head, the crest of her head, how the feathers are kind of erect, like she's very excited. And the two chicks are in the nest with her. Okay, the mother has flown and the two youngsters are alone in the nest. One of the young ospreys has taken flight in the direction recently taken by the mother. Meanwhile, the other chick has flown to a tree where the father was perched. And the youngster perches to the right of the father. Next, the father takes off, leaving the fledgling alone in the tree. Now, notice it's day 111, and I mentioned day 9, which would be very possibly the first day that the egg was actually laid. And then there was 102 maximum days for the process of incubation, plus the time of growth and flying to the flying. Okay, next thing, finally, the young osprey flies near the position formerly occupied by the father. This is the end of part 1, and part 2 continues with a brief summary of equipment and techniques. This is a small equipment list: a camera, spotting scope, adapters to connect camera and scope, tripod, a remote shutter release, and a small viewing hood for the camera LCD display. We'll talk about cameras a little bit. For best results, I recommend a digital camera with interchangeable removable lenses, such as Nikon or Canon brands. Other types of digital cameras may be used if digital adapters are available. Just want to mention that I took a trip to the San Diego Audubon Festival, and while I was there, I saw demonstrations of good iPhone photos done through a spotting scope with a commercially available adapter. The demonstrator happened to be a manufacturer's rep. Excuse me. Okay. Now, focus assist using the LED display is necessary. I say necessary, but it's up to you. But I think it's very helpful. As the camera autofocus feature is not available, the spotting scope lens focusing mechanism is used. Look in the lower right-hand corner of the camera screen. There's a magnifying glass icon. First touch gives a one-time magnification, and a frame appears which can be dragged to any part of the image. Next pushes of the icon will give 5-time or 10-time magnification so you can get a better look at the focus. I think 5 is usually enough. 10 is can be a little bit shaky trying to get it picture. And so this is a very helpful menu on the camera. And I just have a little comment. Nothing to get excited about here. This owl is in a field guide 40 feet away from my camera scope inside my house. Sorry. Okay, now we talk about the spotting scope. The scope shown here is a 30-time power. It's roughly equal in power to a 1250 millimeter lens on a 35 millimeter camera. When using the scope, the lens aperture of the scope coming out of the telescope of the scope is roughly equal to an f/16. Now, adapters. I'll repeat this again. Contact scope manufacturers directly to find the adapters for your specific scope and camera, or talk to a major camera equipment supplier such as B&H Photo, which has a help desk. These are the adapters used on my particular camera. The adapter on the left is attached directly to the spotting scope after the eye part of the eye rest piece is removed. This adapter fastens to the scope and is tightened with a thumb screw. The other end attaches to the adapter shown on the right. The adapter shown on the right attaches directly to the camera. It's actually two pieces. The very front part in the foreground contains a piece of glass which helps protect the camera interior from dust. And the total cost for the 3 adapters pictured was approximately $250 in 2020. Tripods. A tripod helps in at least 2 ways. It prevents vibration and camera movement and keeps the camera on the subject. At a range of 100 yards, it takes time and effort to relocate the subject and frame the picture. And let me say this while I'm talking about tripods. Since you'll be carrying a tripod and your camera and your spotting scope and maybe another camera, it'd be nice to have a bag where you could have your scope and camera already pre-assembled and a place to slip your tripod underneath, maybe in a sleeve underneath. It's a good idea. I don't have it in my list of equipment. Continuing with information about my tripod, camera plus scope can be too heavy for flimsier tripods. Some tripods are especially adapted for balancing camera and scope. Visit a camera store if possible to try a variety of equipment. Here are some of my tripod complaints. It could be lighter. Instead of aluminum, maybe carbon fiber. And after the image is framed, locking the tripod shifts the aim slightly higher, and the tightening screw must be loosened and readjusted. This is the one that controls the movement around the ball on the tripod. And so I would often tighten it, and then I'd have to re-loosen it to readjust. Okay, this is a picture of my camera showing an actual picture that's being taken through my scope and camera. And how do we do this? This is one type of remote shutter release. So let me go into the next slide. This is done using a Camera Connect Canon app. Now, this is the advantage of a phone app like that, which I use with my Canon EOS 77D SLR camera, is number one, camera view is seen on the phone screen. And camera settings such as ISO and shutter speed can be adjusted from the phone. Pictures taken can be seen on the phone. They can also be edited, saved to the phone, and transmitted from the phone. And the photographer can find a comfortable position apart from the camera. Disadvantages of a phone app. Myself, I needed to upgrade my phone to support the app, which is, as many of you know, could be expensive. There is a learning curve to find the menus for making the connection to the camera and to maintain the connections. Also, there is a slight delay between the action seen on the phone and what is happening in real time. Excuse me. Okay, there are other remote shutter releases that can simply trip the shutter for you, so you will not be moving the camera or shaking the camera by trying to trip the shutter. And some of them, they're about the size of a car remote, and relatively inexpensive, probably under $50. An alternate way to trip the shutter, which is using the camera's timed release function. This also can also be set to take a series of more than one photo, which is kind of awkward. So it's probably better to get the other option. Whoops, I skip ahead sometimes. Now the LCD screen hood. This is a handy little thing to have because when I swing my screen out, I can fit this hood over it, and it prevents sunlight from above and the sides hitting the LCD screen, making the image on the screen easier to see when aiming and focusing. It can also be used for standard photography. Estimated cost is $20 to $30. And here's a few photo tips. Sometimes the hardest thing, especially if you have a small subject, is to locate your subject on the screen. Adjust your camera ISO and shutter speed settings so that an image appears on the screen. The settings depend on the amount of light available. Find an object or landscape feature that is easily located with your eyes, focus on it using the scope, and then ease the scope aim towards your photo subject. Make final focus adjustments as needed using the focus assist feature of the camera. Adjust exposure. So the only two ways you can adjust the exposure is with the ISO and the shutter speed. As most of you know, ISO is just the sensitivity of the camera. ISO and shutter speeds are two settings used to adjust the exposure. The f-stop aperture adjustment on the camera is not used because the aperture is controlled, because it's built into the removed camera lens, excuse me. F16 is roughly the aperture produced by my 30 times scope for light entering the camera. As settings are adjusted, the camera meter will indicate whether the exposure is correct or over, under, or over. Obviously, if the subject is in shade, higher ISO settings may be needed and or lower shutter speed may be needed. Generally, in bright sunlight at f16, the ISO and inverse of the shutter speed will be roughly equal. For example, ISO 100, 1/100th of a second. ISO 2000, 1/2000th of a second. However, after I put this on the slide, I realized I probably don't have one ISO 2000 setting on my camera. It's more like 1600. Anyway, this is just a starting place to find the right settings. Rely on your camera meter and test photos. At very high ISO or low shutter speed, quality of picture may decrease. Typically at 100 yards range, I may use 1/2000th of a second and ISO 1600 in strong sunlight. Finally, I prefer to set both shutter speed and ISO manually. Okay, this concludes the technical portion of the program, and I have 3 short photo essays. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Pelican on a Log, and Turkey Vulture on the Arkansas River. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? I was walking down the trail above the river when all of a sudden an osprey rose up above me and flew with a fish. And it flew to a pond over 200 yards away. So I decided to try to get a little closer and set up my Digiscope. But I wasn't going to get too close because I didn't want to scare it away. So I would say this is approximately 200 yards away this picture was taken. And also, just kind of as an aside, this is kind of late in the season for the Pueblo area to have many ospreys around, but this osprey happened to be around. It's almost December. Most of them would probably have migrated further south. Okay, so here is the osprey with the fish hanging down from its talons. And a visitor comes, which happens to be a crow. And another crow. And meanwhile, the osprey is concentrating on the fish, for a while anyway. Now the osprey is a little bit distracted. Well, you're not getting any of my fish. Okay. Next, crow decides it's a good idea to leave. Now all of these pictures were taken over. It was almost a whole hour that I just sat there watching this, but it was interesting. I was waiting for something to happen. So now we have a great blue heron approaching from the right. The osprey notices. And the great blue heron gets closer. And then it gets really close. Oh, can an osprey have a dinner in peace? Oh, well, not too much left right now. The crows come back to take a look. Okay, the white pelican on a log. First, I'm going to say a few words about the white pelicans. They swim on the surface of the water to feed by immersing their large beaks and heads in the water and scooping up fish. They are found on inland bodies of water in the western United States and Canada. They often travel in large flocks in fall and winter. In fall and winter, they range to the southern U.S. coasts, with some vagrants appearing in the northeast U.S. And I will just say a little bit about brown pelicans. The brown pelican feeds by diving from the air into the water and submerging almost completely. The range of the brown pelican includes ocean coastal areas of the United States and further south. So what we're dealing with was a white pelican. The bird in the following pictures had been reported in the area for over a week. Excuse me. I'm going to take a little drink of water. Unfortunately, it had an injured wing. As I was walking along the river, two women coming from the opposite direction informed me about the bird. So I was able to locate it, and I set up on a clear spot right on the riverbank and took some of these pictures. Oops. Sorry. Okay. It's resting on a log, I believe, sticking in the shallow water of the river. And this is just a regular. This is not an enlarged picture, other than just the telephoto effect of my camera and the spotting scope. So this is a full frame. I can barely, as close as I was, I could barely get the whole bird into the picture. And as you will see in the next picture, it stood up. In the back of the bird, you can see a feather hanging, part of the wing hanging down. And you can get a nice look at the web feet of the pelican. And this shows some nice detail on the beak and kind of the coloration of the beak and structure. So several days after this picture was taken, a group of people came and rescued the bird from the river because it wasn't able to fly. So they had to come and rescue it, and they took it to the Nature and Raptor Center. And there it was fed, and evaluated. And after a number of days, it was, I heard that it was shipped to Florida in a secure area that was protected so that it could be on the water and fish without having to fly away. The turkey vulture on the Arkansas River. So this is a good picture of the head of the turkey vulture. As you can see, it does not have any feathers on the head. And look at the big nostril hole there, and the beak. The coloration is kind of interesting to see it that close. So what was it feeding on? It looks like it was probably a mule deer carcass in the shallow water of the river. Summing up, whatever the qualities of photos I may have made, the time spent outdoors was refreshing. As Peg mentioned earlier in the program, patiently waiting for the moment to click the shutter, I was immersed in the activities of nature around me. A western kingbird flying past at eye level just a few yards away, a hairy woodpecker landing in a nearby tree, a calling Canada goose trotting past frantically, tailed by a single gosling, a great horned owl and two owlets appearing along my main line of sight. Spending 1 or 2 hours at a time watching important parts of the osprey life cycle has left me with wonderful, clear memories etched in my mind. Often these mental pictures are more precious than a collection of digitally recorded images.
All right. That was fantastic, Harry. Thank you so
Harry,
much.
That was wonderful. Those photos were great. Good job. Thank you.
So we do have some questions that have come in online while you're presenting, Harry. Are you ready to address them?
I will try.
Okay, perfect. So this comes from username Type R through our YouTube feed. Several questions here, so we'll just go one by one, if that's all right. How did you get into digiscoping, and did someone teach you, or are you self-taught?
I am pretty much self-taught. I started into digiscoping probably let's see, probably about 50 years ago.
Wow.
And I had other equipment. I had a cheaper scope and everything. And there was a snow. I lived in Chicago, and I was photographing snowy owls and some of the ducks on the river and on the lake where I worked. I worked right on the Lake Michigan, and so that's how I got started. And I just kind of taught myself.
Awesome. And so has the use of a digital camera, how has that affected your work compared to 50 years ago? You were using a film, I suppose, correct?
Yes, I was. Yeah. Yeah. So you don't get to see the results right away.
Perfect. Let's see. What's the hardest part or thing you wish you'd known when you started?
Well, it takes a lot of practice to be able to find things sometimes at that far a range, like 100 yards or more. And that was hard. Plus the the tripod was kind of difficult tightening. You tighten it, you think you got the right aim, and then you tighten it and it moves up a little bit or something. So that was probably some of the hardest parts right there.
Let's see. Is there a better time of day than another to observe Digiscope? And if you weren't using the scope, would you risk disturbing the birds?
Yeah, I think that's a very good possibility that you will disturb the birds. They know that they knew I was there, I think, but if you got closer, it's very possible that you would disturb the birds. And a good time around here is like 7 o'clock in the morning because it gets too warm later.
Great. And does that change throughout the year as seasonally, or is seven always pretty good? Does it depends on sunrise, I guess, or?
Well, the light is not quite as harsh in the morning too.
Mm-hmm.
And not directly overhead or something like at noon.
Yeah.
So you get better lighting.
Great. Let's see. So we have another question. Let's see. Let's wrap up Type R's question. We've got a little time here. How much time do you spend digiscoping versus bird watching with plain binoculars or scope?
I spend more time just bird watching and taking pictures with my regular zoom lens.
So would it
so
have
I
to be
spend
a
lot of
special?
time just bird watching. Digiscoping, you have to carry a little bit around. It could be as much as 20 pounds in a pack.
Wow.
So
if there was a special instance like the osprey and the owls, those kind of situations merit getting the 20-pound pack out, I suppose.
yeah. So I was happy to do it, and I was watching over a period of 111 days, and I was really only there 23 days, but there was a couple of days where we went on vacation and stuff, and where not much was happening except they were just getting bigger. But yeah, I'm not sure I answered your question. What the question was?
No, I think you got it absolutely. And then we have another comment or question. Darren asks or says great pictures, and then also question. Type R says very cool, thanks, smiley face. And then Darren asks, how many hours did you spend in total on the Osprey?
Oh, that's well, let's see, 23 days. Just being there to take pictures, probably 30 hours. And then a lot of time working with the pictures themselves after you take so many pictures. That could be a lot of pictures to sort through.
I bet. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Peg. Did you?
I'll say hi to Darren myself.
Okay. Yeah, their last name seemed familiar. Peg, did you have any questions or any comments?
No, I didn't. It was just fascinating to watch just a life cycle over time. It was just well done and good job.
Thank you.
Very interesting. So thank you very much, Harry, for your fascinating presentation, and we got a lot out of it. And thank you, Peg, for leading us. So we'll wrap it up now, and thank you, and be on the lookout for our next broadcast coming up in May. So
thank you all.
Thank you for all your help.
Good night.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.